Hollywood executive Harvey Weinstein has been fired from the studio he co-founded following last week's revelations of numerous sexual harassment allegations. The board of the Weinstein Company made the announcement in a statement released yesterday, citing, quote, new information about the misconduct by Harvey Weinstein. The move comes after a New York Times investigation published on Thursday, revealing allegations that Weinstein engaged in decades worth of rampant sexual harassment. Following the Times report, Weinstein announced Friday he'd take a leave of absence while an outside lawyer investigated the allegations. He issued the apology while his lawyer threatened to sue the newspaper, claiming its report was false and defamatory. About a third of Weinstein's company's all-male board resigned the same day. Also, I think Lisa Bloom, who had previously said that Harvey was just a dinosaur and was raised in the 60s and 70s.
Usually represents women.
Yeah, usually represents women.
Situations.
But for some weird reason was defending Harvey, but I guess the pressure got too hot and she got out. And Brooks Barnes reports that from Thursday to Saturday, he called more than 40 entertainment industry players, and almost all refused to speak for the record on the matter. Barnes said that some of it was because the company's publicists needed to approve anything they'd say, while others gave reasons that painted a picture of a community hobbled by fear, self-interest, and hypocrisy. Amid the continued fallout of the bombshell report, Democratic lawmakers are ridding themselves of the contributions from the mogul and liberal political donor. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and several colleagues announced on Friday they're going to give their money donated by Weinstein to women's charities groups that combat sexual violence. Now, the Democratic National Convention said it would give money to groups that help Democratic women win elections, and also condemned all forms of sexual harassment and assault. But the head of the Republican National Committee is slamming former Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton for not publicly condemning Weinstein. In a series of tweets over the weekend, Ronna Romney McDaniel wrote, quote, whose side is Hillary Clinton on, Harvey Weinstein or his victims? She continued, where is Hillary Clinton's condemnation of Weinstein? Even the New York Times is criticizing her with a link to a New York Times opinion piece. Former President Obama also has yet to weigh in the matter, despite the fact he and Harvey Weinstein had a close relationship, and his daughter even worked for Harvey Weinstein. Mika, and let me ask you, you made a decision, obviously. Let's just talk about it really briefly here. You had a 3-book deal with Hachette, who's owned by Harvey Weinstein, which he leaked to the New York Post. That was a big book deal, but you said no, you walked away from it. Why?
Because it's just not worth it. What's the point? And especially these books are educating women on how to understand their value and communicate it effectively. These are really good books, and they can't be funded by, or they can't be out of a company run by a guy who has alleged perverted activity, who has abused women over the course of years. It's just impossible. And it's also a way of stepping up. I think more people should. Caddy K, I'm surprised that we're seeing such a lack of response. I mean, this is the age of Trump. This is the age in which women who have any power, whether it's inconvenient or not, should be stepping up and pushing back to this behavior. I'm totally at a loss.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have been tweeting about this and texting each other about this all weekend, Mika. I'm stunned at the silence, you know, both from political types, but also from men and women in Hollywood. It shouldn't just be the women in Hollywood speaking up. Men should be speaking up about this too. You know, you asked me if I would retweet. I think it was Saturday morning you texted me and said, would you retweet the story about I'm pulling out of the Hachette deal? It took you less than a day to make that decision. We're now 3 days later and we're still getting silence out of Hollywood. But I did want to ask you, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it directly, when you were making that deal, did you hear anything about Harvey Weinstein? Was this anything that people said at Hachette? Did you hear rumors going around?
I worked with publishers at Hachette, Amanda Murray and Georgina, and they are fantastic women who do great work, and we've done great work. The first Knowing Your Value that came out that we're releasing in the spring, I've worked with these very women, and we've had an incredible time working together. I would have been sad to move away from the company, but I would have done it, absolutely. I never heard anything from inside the company, and I didn't hear much because we don't really, I mean, he's invited us to many events. We've never gone, so we really never traveled in his circles. Having said that, after everything that I read and that he's even admitted to, this was a no-brainer on so many levels. I also am stunned to hear that in this heated board meeting over the weekend, that he thought this would blow over. Like, that is hubris, that is arrogance, that is someone who has been abusing for so many years that he has absolutely no sense of self-awareness. Joining us now, politics editor for the Daily Beast, Sam Stein. And Sam, you've done some reporting on this story as it concerns to the RNC's response. Tell us about that.
Well, first off, I applaud your decision, Mika, and I find the Weinstein Company's reason for firing Harvey Weinstein a little dubious. They say new information just surfaced. If I read the first report correctly, he had 8 settlements. I mean, were those secret? Did they not know about the settlements? I guess the publishing of those settlements is what did it, not new information, past information. Anyways, putting that aside, you know, over the week, there was a lot of pressure put on Democratic politicians, obviously, to return these donations that Weinstein gave. And I think the DNC fed the story instead of putting it away by only giving a portion of their donations from Weinstein and giving them to political groups, not charities. So they took the donations they had received in the past year from Weinstein and gave them to groups that help women run for elected office. And this was sort of a half measure, and they got a lot of criticism for it, and rightfully so. But it just struck me as odd the people who were doing the criticism, which was primarily folks associated with the Republican National Committee. The Republican National Committee is there to promote, fundraise, and take money from, in some cases, Donald Trump, who, as everyone knows, has multiple women having accused him of sexual advances, sexual harassment,
Sam,
and so on.
The RNC has allowed itself to be turned into an arm of Donald Trump, which usually happens, but it's happened more so in this case. So
they fundraised with him this weekend in North Carolina. So
and so, no credibility. If this comes from the RNC, if this comes from a Republican who supports Donald Trump, there's absolutely no credibility whatsoever in that criticism. That's the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, and so I've been asking the RNC repeatedly, well, do you feel like you're compromised in making this case? And they just won't. They won't respond, and I mean, they don't have to respond, but it struck me as hypocritical. Now, if you're a decent, normal human being and you feel intellectually consistent, then you should be able to say what Harvey Weinstein did is deplorable, the money that he gave should be returned, and people should condemn him publicly and quickly. And you should be able to say what Donald Trump did is deplorable, and you shouldn't be associated with him if you feel like Democrats shouldn't be associated with Harvey Weinstein. Those are the consistencies here, and I just feel like there is none.
And Katty, don't you think more women would feel comfortable speaking out in any situation that might be similar to something like this, which seems extreme, I hope, if people step up and support what has happened publicly?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons that women don't speak out about abuse, one of them is that they're accused of lying when they do, and the second is that they get no support, that they're somehow made to feel guilty about what happened to them. It was their fault in some way. Well, this kind of silence that we're hearing from Hollywood, lack of support for Ashley Judge and Rose McGowan, is not going to be very comforting to them, and it's not going to be very comforting to other women who are looking at this story and thinking, God, the titans of Hollywood, the Meryl Streeps and the Jennifer Lawrences, have not stood up publicly and spoken out in support of me. That makes it that much harder. If you are a young woman, it's so often young, vulnerable women who don't have much power, who are in their 20s, who can't speak out like you can, Mika. And that's why we need to speak out, because we need to give them voice as well.
Well,
it should be a lot easier.
They're afraid. They're afraid they may lose money.
Yeah.
I guess, Katty, but.
How much do they need?
Mika lost, Mika lost a lot of money doing this. And again, though, but it was an easy decision to make. I mean, what does Gwyneth Paltrow have to lose? What does Meryl Streep have to lose?
Nothing.
What does, I mean, Kate Winslet, what do all of these people who have worked with Harvey Weinstein have to lose that they won't go out and say something in support of Rose McGowan, in support of Ashley Judge, in support of all these women that have had the courage to finally go out and say something that people in Hollywood have known about for 20 years.
And by the way, the men too, right, Joe? I mean, this shouldn't just be up to the women. There should be up to the male stars too, equally coming out and saying, you know, this is not acceptable. And now that he's been fired, I suspect we might have more of them. But the time to do it was before he was fired.
And by the way, don't put your little ribbons on at the next Oscar ceremony. And don't, Nick. I mean,
people are willing to get up
so self-righteous, so self-righteous.
And the Oscars, and attack President Trump for this kind of thing. Where were they over the weekend? Where are they now?
This was pretty easy. This is easy. This one is not hard.
You don't have to think about it.
No money is worth it.
And by the way, on this set, again, you've been a friend of his. You were in his wedding, right?
Yes.
You condemned his actions. Mika, you had a big financial deal, a book deal, that you walked away from immediately. So we have two people right here at the table, Hollywood. This is not difficult. Step out and just say what's right, what's not right.
And speak for the victims of sexual harassment across the board, and make a more comfortable environment for more women to come forward so we can change the way society functions here, because it's really messed up.
Or at least just start in your corner in Hollywood.
Just do what you can do. Coming up, President Trump attacks the top senator on foreign relations after undercutting his own Secretary of State. We'll talk to NATO's former commander about how that's going over on the world stage. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.